Odyssey and Rumble and the various others. So everyone thinks Velma sucks, but for different reasons. And the reasons that some people are mentioning are what happened is the show came out and it's horrible. Everyone hates it, but the left kind of needs permission to hate something that's kind of viewed as a left-wing thing. And so now people are kind of coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, okay, it's okay to hate on Velma. The reasons that some people are mentioning are coming from people who don't want to see shows. They want to see propaganda. Like, the criticism is coming from people who don't understand the concept of what a show is and what it takes to make successful characters. The best thing they could do with this show is cancel it immediately, pull the episodes, pretend it never happened, and just like don't even acknowledge it. Just move on, go on to something else. But they wouldn't do something even as logical as that, like, you know, folding a bad hand, not throwing good money after bad. Like, you see something is going sideways, you just like stop, let's go in a different direction. They don't do that kind of stuff because they don't see the world the same way we do. It's a show that comes out every Thursday. I guess it has two episodes come out every Thursday. So you're on the 4th episode now. It started off bad. It remained bad. And it's not like, oh, well, this Thursday 5 and 6 are coming out. They're probably it's gonna be the redemption arc. They're gonna turn it around. Almost certainly that is not going to be the case. So these articles, I mean, no one would be more surprised than me if they tried to do something. There's no way in hell. Because to do that, you would have to make the Pox Walks Purse Puppy Mary Sue girl have a learning experience, and then you would have to make the blonde character not be pure literally Satan. They're not going to do that. That's not what they got into Hollywood for. So these articles whining about Velma are absolutely insane. And, you know, imagine if they turn the ethnicity around in these examples. The hypocrisy is staggering, which is what I'm always saying. You have to have the same high in-group preferences that all other groups have. Otherwise, you just get run over. And, like, trying to convince people of that, it's fun to try to convince people of that, but it's not easy. So these people are hypocrites, but nobody does anything about it because Hollywood is run by demons. The only solution is to stop paying Hollywood. And one of the arguments is that Hollywood has an issue with diversity. Okay. Hey, anything you want to do to cast light on Hollywood and help deconstruct Hollywood, and you want to remake it in your own image with the awards ceremonies, with all Pox Walks presenters and everyone on the, knock yourselves out. You want to turn it into BET? Go for it. Accelerate it is what I'm trying to say, because I don't think it's going to result in a stronger Hollywood. By all means, make the shows even woker and woker. I mean, the point of turning things around, that's like 5 or 10 years. You've reached that point a long time ago. There's like, at this point, no, step on the gas. The next bridge to burn, trans have to be in more shows. And in fact, get on Twitter and try to start it like, hey, how come where's the trans representation in Star Wars or some other big show, or even in this show? It's like, where's the trans representation in this show? You divided the characters into boys and girls, and you have like the girls are doing a physical defense course, and the boys are evil oppressors. But where's the non-binary? Where's the trans? And look at Mindy Kalings. It's like, Mindy, that makes you literally Hitler, literally. It's not even a question of sailing the high seas for Hollywood, which is like everything. Someone gave me some of the passwords to put me on their account, so I can, it's like, oh, you got to see this HBO show. Here's a password to go watch something. It's like, I watch it and I thought, yeah, it's like there's not, for the few things that are out there, you can kind of look at it and go like, so kind of past like 2015, 2010, 2005, whatever, there's really, it's really not a whole lot to get excited about. I mean, everyone wants new shows. You don't want to just keep going back and watching the classics over and over again, but you're not given a choice. Well, this is probably the time to go back and, go watch some of the lesser known movies from the 40s, 50s, and 60s that you probably missed out on. And you can track those down, because a lot of them are available free online on like Odyssey and Bit Chute, and track those kind of movies down and get involved in, film noir from the 40s and 50s, because like, there's just not stuff that's come out recently, or it's so like, yeah, there's things slip through the cracks of their gems. Yeah, for sure. But there's so much bad out there. And even in the stuff that people say, oh, hey, this is a hidden gem. You look through it, it's like, no, you're just not as far down the rabbit hole. It's like it's still woke. There's still woke elements to it. Like, don't you notice who all the protagonists and the antagonists are? And which, kind of, it's like The Last of Us. People think The Last of Us is so cool. You kind of like watch it just watch it a little bit more carefully. It's obvious. I mean, it's not just the obvious race swapping, but it's like who's more often portrayed as positive and who's portrayed as negative. It's like once you see it, it ruins. It's like thanks for destroying movies for me. It's better to see the truth no matter what. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to just continually not have those they live glasses and not see what's going on. So what's going on here is they're mad that the Indian Velma isn't a perfect enough character to be an actual purse puppy. They're fine with the anti-European hatred, but the slightest slight on the Indian Velma is haram. That is their concern. She says, as a brown person, well, I am a brown person too. I am a woman of color. All brown characters must be Mary Sue purse puppies. They're also all vaguely upset that she was attracted to the Fred character, who she goes up, but they made him so istophobic, or he's an istophobic character. It's like, yeah, but she wrote him that way. I mean, her and the other guy wrote all the characters this way. This is and they're trying to deflect blame away from Mindy Kaling because she's brown, and they're terrified to lay blame at her feet, even if they're brown also. I mean, the whole thing is just the most pathetic. I was going to say horseshoe, but it's really more convoluted than that. Some weird corkscrewing of political correctness where they don't know who to blame. So they're probably going to find the fairest skinned fall guy within this production that they can lay the blame on. So that's their concern, that all brown characters have to be perfect. They really didn't know how to articulate their anger over her being attracted to Fred, because then there's essentially saying, oh, so race mixing, yeah, that's verboten. Sweet. Sweet. That is a interesting to hear you people say that. So they're mad also that she's portrayed as fat, ugly, and hairy in the show. So they're saying they literally want her to be a perfect 10, a Mary Sue with no problems. So a character with no problems is a character that has no room to grow. They don't understand storytelling. They don't understand a lot of things. They want a completed character. That's not how stories work. That's how kids write stories, or you're drawing comics as a kid where everyone is a Superman. They want their characters to be at the omega, not at the alpha. But it's like you start at the alpha, go to the omega. That's the point of storytelling, to show a little growth and development and redemption arcs and learning experiences. That's what stories are all about. And they don't get that. The thing is, every Pox group does this. They don't want any negative portrayal of their sacred cows, and they're very loud about it on Twitter, if you're familiar with that hellhole. The only group that isn't loud is your group, Tribe Europa. So every show has the same problem. The Pox all turn out to be boring purse puppies. A perfect character is not an interesting character. And I'm not the first one to come up with this. I think I heard this in Diversity in Comics years ago. He pointed that out. He goes, the most interesting characters are going to be the fair-skinned ones, because they're the ones who can have multifaceted depth and nuance, and they can have redemption arcs because they're allowed to be bad and then, eventually become good characters. But the soulful Saint Purse puppies, they're not allowed to be bad and have any redemption arcs. They just arrive as competent, and they just maintain that competence throughout the story. And the Twitter crowd really doesn't understand why that makes for a very shallow, boring character. Like, it's good for a kid's cartoon, like the under 12 crowd, where you're telling a G.I. Joe Transformers type of story where nothing has any stakes, nothing really matters. There's not a whole lot of redemption arcs or growths. But, honestly, even looking back at the 80s cartoons of Transformers and G.I. Joe, there was more growth in those cartoons and character arcs or redemption arcs. There weren't stakes because it's a kid's cartoon. You're not going to show these characters getting deleted left and right because ultimately you still have to sell toys. but there was more growth in those characters. And I mean, of course, that was like 40 years ago. So anyway, these people don't view movies, comics, and shows as stories, not as organic stories. SJWs view these things as vectors for Marxist propaganda. And I've literally heard them say that when they were talking about, some anti-Comicsgate people were talking about that and low-selling mainstream comics. And they said, well, it doesn't really matter anyway. The only goal of comics is to be as propaganda. I'm like, when you hear them say that, and you look at the people in the mainstream comics who believe that and they write that way, you realize, oh, we just have a fundamental. I mean, that's why you see fundamental schism between our values and theirs, and that's why you see the rise of something like Comicsgate, where you're willing to buy, a $35 cyber frog, with shipping or jawbreakers or iron sights or all the stuff that people are selling, because there's no I mean, the alternative is mainstream, Mark Waid and Kwanzaa selling whatever, a lecture on the Second Amendment. This is a fundamental schism between how we view stories. To the left wing, everything's a chance to push propaganda. They want all the stories to be carrying the capital M message. They don't care if it ruins the story. Like, they are childlike fixated on creating all their characters. All the brown characters have to be Supermen. Like, so who's going to play the role of the antagonists? Oh, literally just the blonde-haired characters, because being European is not important to them. It's not, their European origin is not important to the characters, except that's what the detrimental reliance of people who relied on these characters for Scooby Doo, at least for 50 plus years, was that they were what they were, blonde and red-haired European characters, very rare, or at least globally speaking, minorities. That's what built the characters up. That's what connected with the fan base, that they were these European people, or at least portrayed in characters. And then you hear Mindy Kaling come along and say, oh, well, that's not important. Well, it's as important to us as you being Indian would be important to you. Why would you think we wouldn't value ourselves? Just because, I mean, people are very polite on Twitter, but it doesn't mean all this stuff isn't under the surface, and it definitely is. I mean, which is why the show got a 6% on Rotten Tomatoes, where even the reviewers gave it a 50%. So yeah, they literally want every single negative portrayed character to be a blonde or red-haired character. And if you make fun of the Indian, Black, or Latin characters here in the comic, Twitterverse will whine and complain, but nobody ever brings up the idea that if all the brown characters are good protagonists and all the blonde characters are evil antagonists, I mean, that's a child's understanding of a story. Where's the verisimilitude? Where's the willing suspension of disbelief? I mean, if you look at a story, the cover of a story, Velma and Fred, blonde and black, at least from my hair color, you know who the antagonist and protagonist is. That's the story. The question asked and answered is right there on the cover of Scooby Doo. Or there's no Scooby Doo, there's Velma. There isn't any suspension of disbelief. Then there is the anti-European hatred that you see in every show now. It's that's just going to be the standard. Up until recently, people kind of let it fly, but now Hollywood puts this anti-white, misandrist racism in everything, and people are finally starting to speak out against this hatred coming from these Hollywood types, or that it's so ubiquitous. And it's not enough just to give it a 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. You got to get on social media and say, hey, why would you think racism is acceptable? Why would you think it's okay to degrade and dehumanize people of European descent, in every episode? Anyway, the next 2 episodes come out this Thursday, episodes 5 and 6. The best thing they could do would be, if I was her, I'd be begging HBO to say, just end it, just cancel it. This is an L. We're not going to make money off this, but it's better to not keep digging. I don't know how many episodes are supposed to come off. We're going to get a season 2. No, how I would love to go for it. By all means, yes, we'll do a letter campaign to try to get you to get a season 2, accelerate it, get the hatred out there as much as possible. Anyway, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.